Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before I get to our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Christina Bryant on the podcast. She's an IFBB pro coming to us all the way from Georgia. I know we've had a lot of Georgians on the podcast recently, but hey, it seems to be a trend and the weather looks nice there, so I'm glad to talk to someone from there. But she's on here to share her health and fitness journey and just talk things health and fitness. And most importantly, she's our current guest. Christina, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I got to start off first by asking, what is the weather like in Georgia today?
Right now it is currently sunny and I would give it about 95 degrees, but it probably feels like it's 105 degrees.
Oh my God. See, being raised in Minnesota, like once it reaches like 85, it's like, I'm not going outside. It's like, no, that's just ridiculous. But then, hey, I'll take that weather over the negative 20 that it gets here in the winter. So, I mean, I guess, but I mean, I'm not even going to get into that because that's a Winter Woes podcast that I'm going to be working on. It's like 10 hours long of me just telling sob stories for everyone out there of, how cold it gets up here. But before we get into that, Christina, why don't you give us your backstory on what really inspired and motivated you to get in shape and how that led to where you're at right now?
Well, I've been on my fitness journey since about 2013. I went through like a crazy divorce and I went to the doctor just to have checkups done and things of that nature. And we noticed that my blood pressure and I was borderline diabetic. So he said, you have two options. You can either take medication or you can start working out. And working out turned into running because I was kind of too embarrassed to go into a gym. I didn't know what to start doing. I didn't know where to go. I plateaued at a point where I couldn't lose any more weight from 270 pounds to right at 190 pounds. And I met a couple that was a set of bodybuilders here that owned a smoothie shop. And I started working out with them. And then that's when I fell in love with the weight.
Yeah, that's all. Well, then that also goes perfectly into, the first stereotype that I love to bust on this podcast is that, it's gotten better the last 5 years due to Instagram, but there's still so many women that have that fear that if they walk into the gym, they immediately got to go to the treadmill. They don't even look at the weights because they're just afraid of them and they just have that fear that they're just going to bulk up and then they're just like, oh, I just don't want to gain that much muscle. And it's like, oh my God, if only they knew. And did you have that fear at all when you were getting started? And even if you didn't, I bet you hear that all the time now. How do you like to respond to that?
So I didn't hear that because I didn't know about the whole bodybuilding culture before I met Brittany and Tim at the time. I just knew that she had a slamming body, and I was like, I want to look like that. Now I kind of learned to let it brush off because I know people don't research; they just see the physical, and then they're like, oh, okay, she doesn't look how I would want to look. So, you know, different strokes for folks, right?
Well, absolutely. And I always say, just on top of it, too, one of the biggest things that I think impacts women, especially so much more positively than men, is the confidence boost that working out gives you. We have heard, hundreds of stories on this podcast of women who've, it's really just helped them with, make life-changing decisions or just help them be more assertive. I always say that's the one thing that you can take from the gym and use to impact your life in a positive way. How has the confidence boost from working out impacted you in a positive way?
I'm not afraid to step out and do new things. Once I achieved a level of winning, I guess, when I won my first show as an overall competitor, the overall winner, I said, okay, hey, you can kind of hang with this. And I just kept going. I know that I'm going to do my pro debut really soon. So the confidence that I have there is that I know that they selected me as a pro for a reason. So step into it and own it.
Yeah, and especially, after you win your pro card, so many different things happen because, you're just basically now, you went from being a big fish in a small pond to a small fish in a big pond, so, it's fascinating. But I always say whenever people first get started working out, if you were to walk into a gym with 100 people, there's 100 different ways as to how those people got into shape, whether it comes down to their nutrition, their diet, how many reps they do, what exercises they do. So many little things add up to that overall package that people end up seeing. What was that like for you, sort of figuring out what worked best for your body in the beginning? Because it's so much trial and error, and it really impacts a lot of people differently. Like some people give up early because they don't see the results that they want, and other people just say, hey, it's a process.
When I first started competing, I'm thinking that, okay, it's going to be easy to trim my legs down. Naturally, I'm 5'2", I have round muscle bellies, and I'm short and compact. So in order for me to be able to see the changes in my physique, I have to train heavy and I have to train hard to break that muscle down. especially in my legs. That's been one of the hardest muscle groups for me to go in and fine tune in detail, but it's something that I used to hate that I now have fallen in love with.
Yeah, I'm 6'3", so you mentioned legs, and my legs are already shaking right now. Just even me mentioning that, because yeah, I always said I could inject pure muscle into my legs and they wouldn't grow an ounce. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. But you mentioned legs were hard. What was one body part that really took off when you got started?
Um, what really took off was just dropping of the weight and curving my physique, to be honest. The symmetry and seeing how small my waist is compared to my legs and my upper body. I'm always considered to be like a perfect X frame. So just to see that take into effect, it really was amazing to me.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's great. And I love asking that because, so many people, especially with genetics and everyone on, Instagram these days, everyone's like, oh my God, I want his arms. I want her abs. I want their back. It's like, you don't know how that person got to that look. And some people are just born lucky. I mean, I have friends to this day who can, eat 10 Snickers bars a day and they don't gain an ounce. And, I just hope that God's playing a cruel joke on them. And one day they wake up and they're 400 pounds, but it hasn't happened yet. So, I'm still hoping for that, but, no results yet so far. But I mean, nutrition is just so undervalued, I think, in this lifestyle, because like I said, I still have other friends too who just still think, hey, if I go out, I can go out and eat pizza, like 3 times a week. As long as I work out, 5 times a week, I'll be fine. And it's like, yeah, because you're 25 right now, that might work. But, call me in 10 years and see how that works. But what were some of the bigger nutritional changes that you made when you really started to take things seriously in the gym?
So when I first started, I would go online and look at YouTube and different recipes of that nature. But what I noticed with the changes from then until now is portion control. Also, weighing out those options, spreading those meals out throughout the day versus consuming a large breakfast, lunch, and dinner has worked wonders for as far as my diet and exercise is concerned.
Well, and I know, especially being in the South where food is king there, how difficult was it for you too to adjust to that? Because I mean, up here we just have, left salutefisk, my Norwegian side, but I've been to the South a couple of times and I leave usually about 5 pounds heavier than when I entered there.
Yes, so I have a Southern grandmother who would cook on every Sunday or every other Sunday. Family would all meet at the dinner table, and she became offended when I didn't eat her macaroni and cheese anymore. And it wasn't that I didn't want to, it's just because I had been eating clean for so long that I knew if I ate it, it would make me sick. So adjusting to not eating those types of foods all the time was definitely a big adjustment, but I did it.
Yeah. No, we've heard that, from a lot of people too. And yeah, it's just, yeah, people don't realize that when you make that change, you can't just go cold turkey and then go back to regular eating, because you will have issues just because your body gets used to it. But other than that, how was your family's reaction when you said, hey, I want to be a bodybuilder? What was their reaction to it?
At first they were just like, "Oh, okay," and then they came to my show, and I think my mom and my dad they really kind of saw how serious I was then, and then where I've gotten now to where I kind of this year, before COVID, pre-COVID, there were plans for me to travel with Wings of Strength internationally and things of that nature. So, coming back here and being able to stay here with them and save money and compete is something that they've kind of allowed me to do. So I appreciate that.
Oh yeah, I've had to move back in with the rents too as well, and I've been furloughed until like 2 weeks from now. So yeah, I completely get that. But one thing that I mean isn't talked about as much as it should be, and I think it's the most important thing when it comes to this bodybuilding, is people don't realize that posing is the hardest thing for so many of these competitors. It's harder than your nutrition. It's harder than the working out. What has your experience with posing been like?
I sucked. Oh my God. My first show, oh man, I just thought I was hot to try. And then when I look back at my posing and my routine, it was good for a first show, but to know now that no matter how pretty your physique is, if you can't pose it properly, that's what's going to hurt you. So taking the time every workout to pose in between sets or to pose post workout, I put my suit on in the middle of the gym. I don't care who's there. And that's just for me to be comfortable knowing that I got to get on stage in front of so many other people. But I sucked at first, and now it's something I love to do.
So one thing that people don't realize too with the posing is that you're usually more sore after your posing sessions than after your workouts, because the body's not meant to be in that flexed of a state for that long. How long into your journey before you really think that you develop that, endurance for being in a flex state for that long? Because some people it takes years, some people it takes months, but it really varies depending on person.
Last year, I knew that going to nationals, everybody is going to be bringing their A game. So you needed to practice. I listened to Linda Murray say 10 weeks out from her show, she posed every day. She practiced her routine every day. So if you want to be the best at it and you want to be good at it, you got to do it all the time and every day. It needs to be something that's second nature to you. So when you don't have a mirror in front of you and you hit that pose on stage, your body and muscle memory automatically remembers to hit it in a certain way every time.
Does it become hard for you sometimes to not pose when you walk by a mirror?
Yes.
I know when I was in incredible shape a couple of years ago, yeah, it was hard for me too when I walk by a mirror, just not just, get a flex up there. But yeah, I understand that a little bit. But out of your poses that you do, what is your favorite pose to do, and what is your least favorite pose to do?
Um, my favorite pose to do is my rear double bicep pose. Least favorite pose I would have to say is probably abdominal and thigh.
That's our most popular answer by far. Like 90% is the abs for being least favorite, just because it's an awkward pose, and it's like, how can you make that look natural? It's just, yeah, that's one pose. I mean, I think they need to figure out something to really make that change. But I always tell people who aren't, into this lifestyle, they don't know. It's like, if you were to survey the general public, I mean, probably 95 to 99% of the general public wouldn't be able to get into the amount of shape that just going on a prep requires. I mean, you got to be in great shape before you go on a prep. But going on a prep, I mean, you are notching things up to an extreme level where it comes to your dieting, it comes to your workouts. I mean, everything just becomes so scientific. What's that change like for you mentally as soon as you enter a prep and you realize, like, okay, I got to be in tune and I got to be like laser focused now?
Um, it's like it literally is like a switch. I had a conversation with my coach, and he was just like, "All right, so we're how many weeks out? We're about 10 weeks out. All right, I need you to shut it down. I need you to figure it out, and I need you to not make excuses or do anything like that." And that's what I did. Every time I check in with him, it's always something new, different changes, and I'm focused enough to put it this way. He knows how focused that I am that he doesn't have to check up on me all the time. He just knows I'm gonna do right when I do check in.
That is great, because then you don't have to. Yeah, if I had someone who was like asking me like every day, like, "Oh, how you doing? How you doing?" I'd be like, "Okay, come on now." So that's great that you have that. But how early into your prep before you really start to see changes? Some people it takes a couple of weeks. Some people it takes a few months. But on average, would you say how long before you really start to notice the changes in your body?
I really start noticing at the 12-week period. That's when I normally kick it up a notch at a 12-week period. I normally prep no less than 21 to 20 weeks at a time because I want to slow dial in and I want it to preserve as much muscle as I can. Fast preps have never worked for me because I do hold weight because I'm short and compact. So off season for me is easy for me to get back up to 150, 160. This last year I got up to 170 pounds in the off season at 5'2". It was very uncomfortable, but I knew what it took for me to be able to put on the amount of muscle that I had.
See, so for everyone, I'm 6'3" and 200 pounds. So she was only 30 pounds less than me, and she's a full foot and an inch shorter than me. So that shows, just the dedication that, this requires. But also when it comes down to, I mean, just the mindset that you have to have. I always say with the physical journey that you take, it's not nearly as big as the mental journey that you go through and just the mental adjustments that you make. How has this lifestyle changed you mentally? Because I really do think that, I mean, obviously the physical stuff is the stuff that's going to show and people are going to recognize, but the mental stuff is far more important, but it's just less out there for people to realize.
The mental for me trickles over into my everyday discipline. So when it comes to clientele and my time frame, I always let them know, hey, this is your allotted time. And when I have those breaks in between, I'm always filling those breaks up with either working out or homework for school or working with another client. And also just all things outside of just in the gym, from trying to start my website to starting classes virtually, all those types of things.
No, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of stuff, but I mean, on top of that, especially when it comes to bodybuilding, the one thing that I think is the most important, but it's never talked about, is sleep. I mean, it's just so undervalued, I think. And first of all, I had the number one sleep specialist on the planet on. He called us all the way from the UK on Oxford. And first of all, he had one of those British accents where you felt like you gained 10 IQ points just from talking to him. Where I even told him, I was like, "You're just gonna talk the whole time, and I'm gonna listen because I feel smarter just listening to you." But we talked about the importance of sleep, and so what is a general amount of sleep when you're trying, especially when you're in prep, because you need your sleep then. But how much sleep do you try to get, and is there any way, are there any tips and tricks that you use to attain that?
I am an avid user of CBD oil if I need to, or if I need to take a Z pill by Tylenol, the sleeping aids, I'll take those. Other than that, I try to take naps throughout the day. Like if I have clients in between the day at work. But when I first start prep, because I'm having to do so much cardio and lifting so much, my nervous system is shot out. So it's gonna keep me wired in the middle of the night. So it takes about a week or so to adjust. But after that, and this is during prep. Now in off season, I sleep like a baby bear and I snore like a baby bear. Sleep is not a problem in off season at all. But when I am prepping, I do have different aids that I use, or either I'll make sure I get a good 6 hours to 7 hours.
Oh my god, if I even me on 6 hours not on a prep, I'm just like, okay, I might not even be able to work out today. But melatonin is the one thing that that's been a game changer for me too. But yeah, I mean, and first of all, I'm one of those unlucky people where if as soon as I get up, I cannot fall back asleep. Like I can't. I've never taken a nap in my life. I don't think. Maybe when I was a baby I did, but even now, if I try, I just lay there with my eyes closed, and that's a nap for me basically. Like there's no sleep or anything. It's just, yeah, it's just absolutely ridiculous. So hey, good for you that you're able to do that, and just make sure that the next time you take a nap, you just think about the poor unfortunate souls like me that aren't able to take the naps that we want to. But yeah, it's just, there's like I said, there's so many little things that add up to this lifestyle that people don't understand. So I love to just bring that stuff up there on the podcast. But I mean, especially with this era that we're in right now of the coronavirus, where I mean it's drastically changed how we've lived our lives, and especially for so many people, how has this impacted you and your training? Because I mean so many gyms were closed, we heard so many stories on here. How has coronavirus impacted you?
So when Corona first started, my gym tried to hold on as long as it could where I worked at the time, to the point where we were actually hosting boot camps outside until the city was just like, all right, shut it down. Y'all can't anymore. And then I had a friend of mine who actually owned a gym in her home, like a full fledged gym in her garage her husband built for her. So for about 3 months, I was able to still be able to train there. But after that, the gyms opened back up here in Georgia, and I went right back and fell into play. But I can say this, the difference in weight is what got me the first 2 weeks, because I was using bumper plates at her gym in her home to going back to using cast iron. I literally had to kind of slowly build my way back up with my strength.
Yeah, I had to use bands for like the first couple of weeks, and I was like, "This is BS. This is just rude." And then going back to those weights for the first time, you're like, "Oh my god, these are heavier than I remember." But yeah, that's another thing that people just don't understand, is that so many different ways to train and whatnot. But speaking of ways of training, I mean, one method that I was a little familiar with in high school and stuff, and I did it a few times, and then I did it a little bit more in college. But a lot of people say they do it on here, is time under tension. Do you like to do a lot of time under tension in your training?
I do. I see a lot more changes in my muscles, especially on my legs. That slow down and back up, and using those bands to slowly come up and come back down. That's really what's worked for me. Slow rep paces. I'll do 5 second descents, or I'll do 5 seconds back up. It's all just depending on how I'm feeling in the movement and what I'm trying to work that day.
Yeah, and I mean, it works differently for other people. I used to do like those burnouts in high school where you go really slow with the curls, and then next thing you know, you start at 70 and then you go up to 10, and then everyone thinks that you're the weakest person on the planet because you're struggling with the tens on top. But yeah, it really does its wonders. But one thing that also associates kind of with time under tension is the mind to muscle connection. And a lot of people, when you say that to them, they're like, "The what?" They don't get that, but it's something that's so important, because I mean, we've heard so many times that it's the difference between, especially if you're a bodybuilder, mind and muscle connection is so important, where it's the difference between your placing, really. I mean, the ones that usually place higher have a better connection with that, but it takes so long for people to develop that. Again, it takes years and upon years. How long into your journey before you really felt that you had that mind to muscle connection down and you're really able to get the most benefit out of it?
Last year, training to go up for my pro card, I had to change my style of training. At the time, the coach that I had then, he always stressed to me, "You're not a bikini competitor. You're not a figure competitor. You're women's physique slash women's bodybuilder competitor. You're gonna have to train just as heavy or hard as the guys. So you're going to need to slow down your rep range. You're going to need to make sure that you're taking your time." So now, even say for instance, my trouble area this time around was my glutes, my backside. So touching my tie in when I'm working out, and just thinking about the muscle moving and contracting up and down. That's what has helped change the way that my legs and my glutes look this year on stage.
Yeah, it's a difference maker. And if for anyone out there who's, experimenting, I highly recommend you go and give it a try. And as always, take as much time as you want, because I think especially everyone in like my generation who they want everything now and they want it yesterday. This is not a lifestyle that you want to get into if you want the results, automatically, because, I always tell everyone, fine, go work out for one day and look at yourself in the mirror, and I can guarantee you haven't changed a bit. And again, if you have changed significantly, give me a call, because, I want to be trained by you then, because you have just been the most blessed person on the planet. But when it comes to bodybuilding, I always love to ask, when you walk on stage for those shows, what is that feeling like for you when you take that first step on that stage and, you've worked months upon months for this? What is that like when you're walking on that stage?
You got the next 3 minutes to give your best presentation possible. So, girl, you better bring it. But yes, I used to be nervous. Last year I was nervous, but now I feel confident in myself to know that I can stand up with some of the best.
And what was that feeling like for you when they announced your name and you realized, oh my God, I'm a pro now?
God is good.
Yep.
Because I have been working so hard, and I don't think people understand, like, it be times in the gym where I've been in the gym training clients from 8 in the morning, and then I have to do my own thing after them, and I wouldn't leave sometimes till 8 or 9 at night. And I'm, eating all my meals there, no matter if I got it warmed up or not. Eating cold fish is not fun for anybody, but it's something that you have to do. If you want to be the best, you suck it up. So that to me is, God, thank you for carrying me and giving me the strength to be able to take this journey.
I mean, so many people don't understand that it's more than just the working out, and it's more than just going on stage. I mean, it's the mental journey as well. It's, just convincing yourself day after day that, I got to do this routine. I got to just keep it going. And, it's, if anyone says that they never struggle, then, they're the biggest liar on the planet. But, it's just, that's why I find it so interesting. First of all, because the amount of training that you guys do is equal to any athlete on the planet, and you guys are only on stage for, like what you said, 3 minutes, whereas any other athlete, they're on the stage for, maybe 100 times a year for what, like a couple hours each time. And it's just, that just shows the dedication. But I don't want to ask you this, but I kind of have to, because this is the question that I feel so sorry for. But what is your go-to post-show meal?
My go-to post-show meal, I had this question earlier asking me in the gym when I was training. My cousin makes a mean banana pudding, okay? And she uses those little chess cookies with the little horsemen on the front as a layer at the top. So hopefully she'll make me one this year. I have to send her a text message and probably beg her to make it, because normally she has to fight her kids off because they try to eat it.
Oh my God. Yeah, okay, I'm even drooling a little bit just thinking about it. That's why I hate asking that question, because I know it's going to be an answer that's going to make me drool. But the one for me is that I have an uncle that makes, the best beef jerky on the planet. And like every Christmas, we just get a bag of it. So that's the one time where, my blood pressure goes up about, 20 on each side, because it's bad, but hey, it is so worth it. But another myth that I love to bust on this podcast and talk about, because so many people don't understand, is that look that you guys put on stage, that is not a sustainable look. You're not going to be able to look like that 24/7. And so many people, I think, when they first get started, they have that idea, especially if they don't have a coach. So that's even more advice to get a coach. But what was that experience like for you when you first realized that, like, hey, all this hard work that I put into this look, it's not going to be sustainable. I am going to have to put on some weight. What was that like for you? And has it gotten easier for you to accept that as your career has gone on?
Yes. I'm gonna tell you a funny thing. So when it comes to dating,
Yep.
with that question that you asked me, so I get more play when I'm heavier and I'm quote unquote thick, than I do when I'm actually cutting in a little bit harder for a show. I've embraced the thick look. I was already a heavy girl anyway, so I know it's the inevitable after a show. But what has played an important part, and I want everybody to understand this, post show does not mean get out of control with your food habits, because you will pick up 10 pounds, and I've seen people do it within the 3-day time frame from the sodium and the water that dump back into your diet from eating junk after a show. It's okay to pace yourself, but also have moments of moderation with your cheat meals, because you will gain a lot of weight after a show.
Oh, we've heard stories of here. There was one guy that I had on that put on 40 pounds in 2 weeks, and it's like, geez, and that's just ridiculous. But I mean, I know it's, and that's great that as you get thicker, people give you more attention. I find that actually pretty hilarious that's the case. But when it also comes down to, I just equate it to also like starting your own business where you got to spend money to make money. You got to put on weight if you want to put on muscle. I mean, those two just go hand in hand. But also, since you train people, I always love to ask trainers this question because, a lot of times people don't understand, how difficult of a job training can be. But when you first get started with a general client, what would you say is probably one of the biggest obstacles that you have to overcome with new clients in this day and age?
That whole thing of they want everything right then. They think that I have a wand like Jesus and I can just voila and they're small. That doesn't work that way. I let them know that on my journey, I've wanted to quit a few times and I've given plenty of excuses, probably more excuses than they can ever think of in their head. So to give me an excuse on why they can't do it, it's going to be really hard for me to accept it because I've used all of them for myself. So, them being able to say, okay, it didn't take me 3 months to knock this weight on my body, and it's not going to take 3 months to rip it off.
No, I totally agree with that. It's it's just so fascinating how so many people just have that myth where they're just gonna change overnight, and anything to really dispel that. And then also one that we hear all the time is, oh, I don't have the time, and it's like we all have the same 24 hours in the day, unless you're Dwayne the Rock Johnson. I think he made a deal with the devil where he got an extra like 3 hours in there. So who knows, but that's just what I personally think. But I mean, especially in this coronavirus where everyone has so much more free time than, they normally would have. I always say this is the time to get in shape because I mean, so many people can't use that excuse now of I don't have the time. But I think with the general public, everyone wants to get in a little bit better shape, but they just lack the tools. But what advice would you have for someone who might just walk up to you and say, "Hey, I'm really trying to, just get started," because I think that once you get started, it's so easier to, take that first step into the gym. And once you take that first step in the gym, it is so hard to not do a workout once you get there.
Um, Allow yourself to be human and feel the emotion that you're feeling. And then don't fall into feeling a pity party, but say, okay, hey, what's next? What are we going to do differently now that we haven't been doing that's going to put me where I need to be? And be open minded to critiques. Because when somebody gives you a critique, it's not necessarily going to get you or trying to tell you that you're wrong. But they, for a person to even care enough to want to give you a critique, think about it in that way.
Oh my god, yeah, especially with my generation, if you get one critique, it's like someone just stabbed you in the back and you're just like, "Oh my." So yeah, everyone just grow a little bit, okay? Just realize that, if someone critiques you, not always is it something because they're being negative towards you, but yeah, that's one thing too where it took me a while, with all aspects of life too to just realize that, sometimes criticism is the best thing that you can get because it really just helps you grow and improve. But also two questions that I love to ask on this podcast because, they affected me where, as I was getting bigger and stronger, there's so many positive things, but the one negative thing is that you're going to get asked to move a lot of people's furniture. You're going to get asked to open a lot of water bottles or anything that's sealed on tight. You're basically the go-to strength person. Has that been a similar experience for you where, I mean, your family, you must just be, just the lifting company basically where if they ever need something moved, they're just like, oh, Christina, come over here and help us.
Yes, and I always say this is show muscle. This is not goat muscle. I'm not moving furniture. 2 men in a truck is available at all times. But for my mom, I will open jars and stuff around here for her.
Well, and I always say there's never a better sight than someone who's in great shape struggling to open something. So that's a Kodak moment where you just gotta take the photo there. But I mean, the clothing options too is another big thing that we hear of all the time. Where I mean, if once you have big broad shoulders, I mean, dresses aren't going to be your best friend. Jeans are another thing that we hear of all the time. Where if you have a big lower body and a small waist, good luck finding a pair of jeans. What is it like for you, sort of trying to find a wardrobe that works for you? Because I always say too, you have to have two wardrobes: your prep wardrobe and your off-season wardrobe.
Yes. For me, I've learned to get things that stretch, and leggings are something that I wear a lot of every day. So I make sure to keep a variety of leggings. But I do like to wear dresses, and I do still like to dress up. So I make sure to find dresses that accent my shape versus just like the big oversized dresses.
Oh yeah, I mean, most women, if you were coming to their wedding, they'd say, first of all, you got to cover up the sleeves because I don't want you to be the attention at the wedding, as opposed to me. But do you have to like get them separately tailored and stuff? Because we hear that all the time. Like if you're getting a specific dress.
So I would, I can say this much. I had a red carpet event to go to for my Amazon documentary, and me and my mother tried on, I want to say, about 6 dresses in that store until we got to the last dress and it fit. And the only reason it fit is because I could step into it versus trying to pull it over my head. Because the issue I have is my back is so wide that it makes it hard for me to wear tailored dresses unless it's already tailored specifically for me.
So so this is interesting. So your Amazon documentary, what's it about?
It basically just tells my journey from 270 pounds to the stage.
And what's it called so people can look it up? And I'll leave a link down below so people can check it out.
It is called You Become Inspired. It is season 2, episode 201 with Christina Bryant.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that sounds great. I'll leave a link down below for everyone down there. And yeah, that's amazing. And yeah, I recommend everyone go and check it out. And it's just, yeah, that's so great that you were able to. How'd you get in contact? Did they just contact you, or how did that come to be?
I had a friend of mine that I went to college with that is a journalist out in LA for some of the TV stations and movie studios there. And he had been following me on Facebook and reached out to me.
Yeah, that's hey, it's amazing how those little things can turn into big things. I mean, that's happened to me a lot on this podcast as well. But a question that I asked all the viewers before New Year's is, what is one body part that you're looking on improving the most? And the answers were arms, back, abs, glutes, calves, just like every answer. But arms won by like 10% because I mean, of course, who doesn't want good arms? So I always got to ask each guest that I have on, what does an arm day look like for you?
Oh man, a lot of repetition, that time under tension, and heavyweight. I prefer heavyweight. I just seen it grow, but I use a lot more cables than I do actual dumbbells, just because it doesn't put so much stress on my triceps and my elbows.
Which I mean, for everyone out there, your triceps are probably the most important part of your arm because it's the biggest thing. And I always say, if you have nice triceps, it's so much easier to hide, other deficiencies that you might have with your arms. So that's just a little tip out there. But yeah, I mean, heavyweight is one thing that I go through probably like once a week. I'll do. Well, I usually rotate. So like once a month, I'll do a heavy workout, and then the other ways I'll just do because I'm 6'3". I mean, let's be honest, I'm not gonna put on that much muscle. Being this tall, it's I'm gonna put on a little bit of muscle, but I'm not gonna walk in there like Hulk Hogan or anything like that. But yeah, so that's just unfortunately what it's been like there. But one thing that I find so fascinating about bodybuilders, I mean, is like if you were to walk out in public dressed the way that you are right now, I mean, you are the center of attention. I always like to compare it to being like a mini celebrity, where it's just people are fascinated by stuff that they're not familiar with, and it's just something that's so fascinating. And has it been easier for you as your journey has gone on to get used to the fact that, I mean, if you walk out in public, I mean, you might get stares and people are just, maybe might walk up to you or treat you a little funny?
At first it bothered me a little bit, but now I don't pay attention to it just because I walk around with it on all day. To me, it's just me. But my dad noticed in the airport last year when we were coming back from Chicago, he was just like, I don't think you understand. People watch you, Christina, and they watch you a lot. And I want you to make sure you're paying attention and just be smart about it. He's like, cause you walk around, bebopping all happy and friendly, but people are staring. I'm just amazed you didn't notice it. I say, it's just me.
Well, and that's a great answer too, because so many people they really take it to heart, and then they really just and people let it affect their journey, what other people think and what other people say. So that's great too. But do you feel that during this coronavirus, it's actually gotten easier for you to train? Because for so many people, just that balancing act between a social life and their bodybuilding is really hard to juggle. But especially now, I mean, no one really has a social life now. Do you find that it's been easier for you to train without having to worry about those other burdens that you might have had to deal with pre-coronavirus?
No, because I've always been a hermit anyway when it comes to training. I normally train by myself. I may have one or two training partners that can keep up with me, but for the most part, I'm a loner when it comes to training anyway.
Which I am 100% too. If anyone even walks up to me within 5 feet and they're not a friend, I'm just like, dude, no. Just I'm one of those people where it's I got to be alone when I train. So yeah, I agree with that too. But if we were to talk to you a year from today, where would you like to be at in your bodybuilding career? Where would you just like to be at in your overall life? What are some goals that you'd like to have achieved if we talk a year from today?
A year from today, my goal is to be an Olympian. I would like to be traveling the country, being able to give out leg advice, glute advice, and training seminars. Also posing seminars. Also just events that uplift the community, especially women, to let them know that our health and wellness is so important. I sit back and I think when I look at some of my pictures, some of the leading causes of coronavirus right now is due to pre-existing health conditions, whether you're overweight, diabetic, high blood pressure. And I once was that person. So to know that I could have been easily sent up in the hospital bed with the coronavirus based on pre-existing health conditions, I'm grateful for those moments that I went through back in 2013 that made me wise up about my health.
Yeah, and that's just great, and that just sounds so awesome, especially yeah, because I mean that's why I have the majority of my podcast guests are women, because I just love having that uplifting thing and just proving that hey, you can do whatever you want, and because a lot of women, like we said, still have those fears about the gym, and just to help disprove that, I mean it's just it's so amazing, and I really do enjoy it. But if someone were to walk up to you and say, Christina, we made the decision, you can change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
The amount of money that they pay us women. I do. When I look at the money, I was looking at the prize money at some of the shows compared to the men. We work just as hard, if not harder. So I
Okay.
would think that we would be able to see at least a little bit more than half of what they get. I do appreciate Alina Papa and Jake Wood for bringing the wins of women's bodybuilding back, and the amount of money that they have been paying out at their shows. It is fair across the board with that.
Well, and that's great, and yeah, that's one thing I'd say too, and I'd say just pay everyone more too, because it's like a lot of people don't realize this is a sport that you get into, you're going to lose money unless you're like first place in like every single show that you do. Like it's not something that people go for because oh I want to make all the money and stuff. So it's yeah, I'd say just raise it too, but yeah, for women especially, it's ridiculous. You look at some of the pay rates and you're just like, okay, this is just absolutely bonkers. So yeah, I totally agree with you on that. And you said that you were going to go out and give leg advice, and I told you before my legs are just dead, they're just dead. So any advice, what advice would you maybe have just for me, and not even me in general, but for the general public, because I'm at the point right now where I'm willing to take any advice and try it.
Um, for instance, when it comes to women, they always come to me and are like, "How do you get your hamstrings like that?" Or "How do you get your tie-in and your legs like that, your quads like that?" Taking the time to lift a heavy weight. Legs is not something easy. It's a large muscle group. It's one of your largest muscle groups you have in your body. So you're gonna have to train it hard and you're gonna have to train it heavy. You're gonna be sore on some days. So you have to embrace the suck and go along with it. But I promise you, you'll see those changes that you want to see. I am living proof from when I started back on prep this past April to now, the changes that I've made in my lower half, especially my glutes. I'm proud that I stuck through it and embraced the suck.
I That's given me horror flashbacks to when I was in college, because we had those in the dorm rooms. We had those tall bunk beds where they weren't bunk beds, but the bed was like 10 feet off the ground. After every damn leg day, having to climb those stairs to get into the bed and having to climb out the morning after. I mean, it was just ridiculous. But yeah, legs again. Everyone just yeah, it's all about experimentation and finding out what works best for you, and it's going to take some time and it's going to take a lot of effort, but it's all about the journey, because so many people have this misconception that for a lot of these bodybuilders, getting on stage is is their happiest moment, but for a lot of them it's just the journey, because let's be honest, if you really didn't enjoy the working out aspect, I would feel so bad for you, because you only have like 3 minutes of enjoyment. So yeah, I cannot preach that enough. But you said that you like to lift heavy now, so now this is the time where you really embarrass us. What are some of your best lifts, being 5'2", for God's sake?
405 pounds on the squat rack. Um, I've been able to push 135-pound shoulder presses. Um, just just seeing me go from being able to just press the bar or squat the bar to actually lifting that kind of weight. Now, I will tell you this: 405 is something that I don't recommend to anybody and everybody to just be tossing around and doing. There's nothing to prove. Everybody knows that I'm strong. So that was the one time I said, okay, you got it, girl. You did it. Don't do it again. Because for 3 days after that, I felt like I got hit by a bus.
Yeah. So yeah, and again, our guest just embarrassing me. It's just absolutely ridiculous. I definitely got to go hit the weight room after this. But again, Christina, I mean, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
I give a shout out to my mentor Monique Hayes, my coach Brandon Ray, my suit sponsors, Evo Suit by B, and my jewelry sponsor, Miss Body Bling. Thank you guys as always. I'm grateful to have you guys in my corner.
Oh, yeah, and that's awesome. I'll leave a link to all that stuff again too down below, and everyone go and check that out. And again, Christina, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your journey. It's so great having you on.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Ryan.
Everyone, go and give her a follow down below. I'll leave a link to her Instagram page. Buyer beware, though. You will be inspired to get off the couch and stop eating those Twinkies and actually get in shape. So, just a little thing before that. But, Christina, I couldn't think of a better way to end this. Can you give us a front double buy and just everyone just, we all need to work out now. Oh my God, that's not even fair, everyone. That's just we all need to train arms now. Jeez, that's just not even that's not right. So again, everyone, go and give her a follow and just maybe you can get arms like that one day. Who knows? But again, you guys, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.